All right, let's dive in. Today, we're deconstructing Toni Morrison's incredible 1970 novel, The Bluest Eye. And this is a book that doesn't just tell a story, it takes an idea apart, piece by piece, to show us how it can become a weapon. And that's exactly what we're going to break down today.
So, to really get this novel, you have to start with the huge question it asks. How does racism do its most destructive work? Is it through, overt acts of violence? Or is it something quieter, something more insidious that gets inside you? This is the question Morrison really forces us to look at.
And the answer the novel gives? Well, that's the core idea we're going to be exploring here. It says that racism does its worst damage when it gets inside you, when it's internalized. Morrison is arguing that the tragedy at the heart of this story isn't some freak accident. No, it's a structural outcome. So let's unpack what that really means.
So, first up, a devastating question and how Morrison frames the novel's central conflict. And you need to know, right away, this is not a simple good versus evil story. Not at all. The real battle here is happening inside the characters' own minds.
So, at the heart of this story is a young girl named Pecola Breedlove. We're in 1940s America, and she has this one all-consuming, just heartbreaking wish. She prays for blue eyes. And that single desire, it becomes the symbol for everything else in the book. Which leads us to the real question, right? Is that desire even hers? I mean, did she just come up with it on her own, or was it planted there? And asking that is what shifts this whole story from just what happened to the much, much bigger question of why.
And that why drops us right into this huge concept, ideology. We're talking about the powerful and really damaging ideology of white beauty standards that just saturated the culture of 1940s America.
So how does this actually work? Well, there's a term for it: internalized racism. It's basically the process where a group that's being oppressed starts to adopt the belief system of their oppressors. They start using those same standards, their ideas of beauty, of worth, to judge themselves in their own community. It's how that external force of racism literally gets inside your head.
And you really have to get this distinction to understand Pecola's wish. Think about it. A natural desire, like being hungry for food, that's just biology. But an ideological desire, that's something you're taught. Pecola wasn't born wanting blue eyes. No way. She learned to want them from a world that told her over and over again that whiteness equals value, whiteness equals love.
And Morrison shows us exactly how this teaching happens, using these everyday objects. Okay, so think about a Shirley Temple cup, or one of those white baby dolls. On the surface, totally innocent, right? Just kid stuff. But Morrison peels back that layer and shows us their ideological function. They're actually tools, indoctrinating kids with this idea that to be lovable, to be valuable, you have to be white. Now, this is so cool. Morrison doesn't just spell these ideas out for us. She actually builds them into the very bones of the novel. The way she tells the story is just as powerful as the story itself.
I mean, she uses this whole arsenal of techniques. The story is all broken up, fragmented. It jumps between different perspectives, different narrators. The timeline is all over the place. And these are not just artsy choices. No, they are designed to make you, the reader, feel that chaos, that psychological breakdown the characters are going through.
Okay, so one of the most famous examples of this is how she uses the Dick and Jane primer from those old kids' books. It represents that perfect, idealized, white, middle-class narrative of a perfect family and a perfect house. It's the cultural fairy tale.
But then she does this. She repeats the text, but smashes it all together, no spaces, no punctuation. It becomes this breathless, frantic, nonsensical thing. By slamming that perfect fairy tale up against the chaotic, painful reality of the Breedlove family, she just shatters the illusion. She shows you how violent that innocent story really is.
So the big takeaway here is that the form mirrors the content. The broken sentences are showing us a broken world. The style isn't just for show, it's a tool to make us feel the disintegration she is writing about.
Okay, so to really grasp the genius of what Morrison is doing here, it helps to use a couple of powerful analytical tools. Now don't worry, this isn't about getting lost in academic jargon. Think of these more like special glasses that let you see the hidden power structures at play in the novel. So if we put on the glasses of critical race theory, we suddenly see that the racism in the book isn't just about a few bad people. It's structural. It's woven into the fabric of the culture.
And then, if we look through the lens of intersectional feminism, it's crystal clear that Piccola's suffering is happening at the intersection of her race, her gender, and her poverty. It's that deadly combination of forces that crushes her.
This brings us to the final, and maybe the most difficult part of Morrison's argument. If the problem is structural, then who is responsible for Piccola's tragedy? The answer is deeply unsettling.
You see, Morrison doesn't just point the finger at the dominant white culture. She shows, with painful honesty, how Piccola's own African-American community, itself a victim of systemic racism, ends up participating in her destruction. They use her as a scapegoat, marginalizing her to protect their own fragile sense of normalcy. And this is the devastating conclusion. Piccola's tragedy shows how communities can end up reproducing the very ideological violence that harms them, all while believing themselves innocent. It's a vicious cycle of pain turned inward.
And so we come full circle, right back to our original idea. Morrison's crucial point is that what happens to Piccola Breedlove is not an exception. It's not just one sad story. It is a structural outcome, the logical result of a system where the idea of whiteness as value has been turned into a weapon.
And that leaves us with a final question to think about. Morrison exposed the Dick and Jane story of her time. So, what are the seemingly perfect, simple stories that shape our world today? What ideals of beauty, success, or normalcy are we being taught to desire? And who do those ideals leave out? It's a question the Bluest eye forces us to keep asking.